Chelsea, you spent nearly a decade, right, in the pretty high stressful world of PR and marketing before now pivoting towards breathwork and mindfulness. I'm curious, what sparked that change for you to take quite a big leap?
Yes, wonderful question. Um, it took really hitting just a massive amount of stress in my life. I was getting super burnt out. I was working what felt like 100-hour weeks, if not literally 100-hour weeks. And I had no practices to come back to myself. So I found that I was working all the time, and then weekends I was crashing and I would just sleep and not do anything. And it took actually leaving New York City, which used to be my home, and spending some time traveling, starting to work remotely, and realizing that I had time to fit in a meditation practice because I needed to do something.
Yeah.
And as I started getting into meditation, breathwork kind of came as a natural next step. I got more into yoga. Breathwork is a really key piece of a yogic practice. And kind of the further down this path I went, the more in depth my studies and practice and understanding of breathwork went as well.
Hmm. Beautiful. And then at some point, as you became deeper and deeper, started taking customers and actually working with different kinds of people in Mexico now, right?
Yes. So it wasn't actually until I quit having a corporate full-time job altogether. And I just took some time off to go do a yoga teacher training for myself. I went on a meditation retreat. I went on another meditation retreat. And then I found a breathwork school here in Mexico with teachers that just felt so aligned with the way that they present information, with the way that they hold space when they are guiding people. And I've been training with them ever since. And after getting certified in breathwork, that's when I started to hold sessions for people as well, and just start to see how much this can make an impact in people's lives.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed is like different breath coaches or facilitators, they have like different audiences they resonate with. I know someone who is like a lot of mothers that are, stressful with kids and so forth. Seems like in your case, like a lot of the like very elite level performers, like executive CEOs are drawn to your work. Was there like a moment that started happening more and more? And like, do you know why that started happening?
It started completely by coincidence. My business works so much on referrals. And so it's like I meet one
Right.
person who then refers me out to their network. And before I know it, I'm working with the entire office. But I think what helps is having a background in corporate, having spent time in a really fast paced, really high stress environment in New York. I understand what they're going through. I understand the
Yeah.
pressures that they're under. I understand the fact that no, I'm just not going to come to this meeting because, I'm feeling stressed. That's not an option. That's not how their world works. And so they need something that is concrete, clear, and works in their schedule. There's no time to like mess around and like, maybe this will work. It's like they need something that's results driven. And that's what I can offer them.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. You mentioned the stress, and I think I've heard you speak about the nervous system regulation, which I think more and more people kind of get to some extent. But it might be useful. It's almost like a primer to the listeners here. Like, can you talk more about the what does it mean to regulate your nervous system, and why is this crucial, particularly for the leaders?
Yes. So most people have likely heard of this idea of being in fight or flight or rest, digest, and repair. And what we don't realize is that we can train our bodies to make fight or flight our normal. We just start to rest in fight or flight. But the thing is you're never truly resting if you're in fight or flight. But because you've been in that state for so long, you don't understand what else is an option. And so all of a sudden, symptoms like poor sleep feels normal. Having a foggy mind feels normal. Being irritable feels normal. Having like gut problems and health issues coming up, it feels normal. If you don't know anything other than a super, super high stress life, you have probably normalized a suboptimal way of being. How are you going to make the best decisions for yourself, your family, your company, your life if you aren't functioning at your best? And so we need to get people out of this fight or flight to a place where their mind is more clear. It's amazing to see how from just regulating your nervous system, getting back down to a state of equilibrium, of balance, of homeostasis, you can get more done in the same amount of hours. And so people
Yeah.
are like, I don't have 10 minutes to do this breathwork thing every day. I can't do that. That's not going to work for my schedule. And I'm like, the 10 minutes is going to save you hours. You're going to make decisions with more clarity. You're going to go through meetings faster. You are going to get the projects that you have to do on the side done quicker, with less errors, with more efficiency, with more creativity. And so it really just takes trust, a little bit of belief that, like, okay, maybe this breathwork thing is going to work for me. And then after 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of working together, people start calling and they're like, what happened? My day is so different. I got this done so much faster. And then my wife said I've never been nicer. And my sister asked what's going on with me because I seem different. And so it's this amazing thing that we do it to get better at work. And the ripple effects are not limited to that office. The ripple effects show up in every single aspect of life. They're like, oh my God, I didn't think my body physically could sleep for 8 hours. Because I usually wake up. I usually have insomnia. It's usually too hard to fall asleep. My mind is racing, whatever their individual circumstances. And now all of a sudden they're like, I got a good night of sleep. I don't think I've had that since I was 20. And so for people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, we're talking decades of making stress your normal, decades of bad sleep, decades of stomach issues, decades of headaches.
Yeah.
Then in a few weeks, just start to fade.
Hmm. Maybe one thing I wanted to ask you is like, because we talked about the nervous system regulation, and another regulation people talk about is emotional regulation. Like, what's the link, or is there one between the two? What do you think?
Big time. Big time. One of the symptoms of being in fight or flight is that all of your senses have to narrow onto the perceived threat ahead of you. So back in the day when we were cave people, the biggest threat that we were facing was a lion or a tiger or a bear. If I think there's a lion, a tiger, or a bear in front of me, I don't care what else is happening behind me. So I need to only be listening to where I think this animal is. I need to be watching where I think this animal is. All of my senses are zoomed in on that animal so that it can't eat me. The issue is now our stressors are not lions and tigers and bears. They are Slack messages, emails, slide decks, and messages from our mother-in-law, right? These things are most likely not going to kill you, but our nervous system responds in the exact same way. And so what happens is all of our senses narrow. And the only thing that we can focus on is the perceived problem at hand because our nervous system thinks it's going to kill us.
Hmm.
And so if you are facing a problem at work, whatever that may be, that is most likely the only thing you can think of. And so if somebody is speaking to you and they are not specifically this problem, your response is probably going to be real short, maybe rude, maybe out of proportion to what it needs to be, because you have to be focused on the thing that you think is killing you.
Hmm.
And so our emotions move with this stress response. And all of a sudden, the way that we're interacting with the entire world around us is warped because we can't see clearly. And so you can imagine that if this is where your focus is on the one and only problem. We have to get this next round of funding or whatever. You don't have the ability to focus on literally anything else.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so having that imbalance is going to create emotions that are completely out of whack.
It's almost like narrowing the scope of emotions that you might have is one way to put it. And I guess,
Totally.
at least in my experience, it's also like, when you have this like trigger, there's like you have the emotion and then there's a response. And the nervous system regulation, to me at least, means that you have a bit of a gap between the two. So you can actually decide if you want to act the way you feel. I don't know if
Exactly.
you've experienced this as well with your customers.
Totally. And that's where breath comes in. right?
Hmm.
Even half a minute. Because if you think you're going to die, you probably don't think you've got 10 minutes to close your eyes and relax and do some breathing. But
Yeah.
can you take 3 really slow breaths before you speak? And can you notice how that calms you down even just a little bit?
Yeah.
Slows down. It gives you that pause that you were speaking of. Exactly. It gives you that little momentary pause. The other thing to think about is if you're about to get eaten by a bear and somebody comes to you and gives you the best news in the entire world, you don't have space to be excited. You don't have space to go, oh my God, yes, I'm celebrating, but like I'm also watching the bear, but I'm celebrating. You can't do both of those things at the same time. And so you start to realize that you can't get to those really enjoyable feelings of celebration and joy and presence and bliss and love and whatever it is that you want to be feeling in
Hmm.
your day. You can't feel that fully if you're stuck in a stress loop.
Yeah. Definitely. Maybe we could kind of. It seems to me like there's a lot of people in the performance. Like we talked about, like alleviating stress, right? That's one way to look at it. You go from zero minus one to zero. But also, like, there seems to be this other side where you can actually go from zero to plus side, which kind of you referred to here is like experiencing positive emotions, but also, which a lot of people care about, is like actual performance, focus, better decision making, and so forth. Like, how does this kind of nervous system hacking or breathing actually do that? What's a good analogy here?
Um, so I think one analogy that I love to use is the breath is the medicine, right? And
Hmm.
so if you're sick and you don't know anything about medicine, you're just going to like reach into the cabinet, grab something, and be like, I guess I'll take this because it's medicine. That's not really how it works, right? If you have a cough, you want to take Dayquil. If you have a headache, you want to take Advil. There's different medicines for different problems. And the breath works in a really similar way. And so if your problem is high stress, there's a type of breath you should be using for that. If your problem is that you can't sleep, there's a type of breath you should be using for that. If your problem is low energy, there's a type of breath you can be using for that. And if your problem is that you want to do some like deep emotional regulation, deep emotional release, there's a breath you should be using for that. I don't want you doing deep emotional release and then going into a board meeting. This is not the right medicine. Don't take that one,
Yeah,
right?
I can
Do that on a
imagine.
Saturday. And so it's this interesting thing where I usually start working with clients who think that breath work is one thing. It's just,
Hmm.
and then as they get into this and they start to understand there are so many different tools, so many different techniques, and you can pull out the one you need in the moment you need it. But you need that information first. You have to
Yeah.
understand where, first of all, where you are, which that's one of the other benefits to this, right? Is if you're busy and crazy in your day and you go, okay, I've got 2 minutes, I need to do breath work. Wait, what do I need? Where am I?
Hmm.
What is the type of regulation that would serve me now? And so already before you've even started doing conscious breathing, you're asking these questions that are getting yourself into your body, which is a much better place to be grounded than letting your mind just spin fully.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think we've had this habit of like in this podcast to actually give people a practical example so they can learn something new. What's the typical situation you felt that leaders find themselves in, and what's been then the, let's say, call it the medicine for that particular thing?
Yeah. So I think, there's so many calming breaths, right? We need to calm ourselves before we walk
Mm,
into the meeting so we're calm, cool, collected. But I have a different one that I want to share if that's okay.
sure.
It is called Kapalabhati and it comes from the yogic pranayama breathing lineage. Um, this is what I tell people to do if they are tired and feeling a little groggy and like they need a shot of espresso, but they either don't have time or they don't want the other side effects, right? It's too late at night for a coffee. You don't want to feel jittery. Sometimes coffee makes you feel anxious, and this isn't the moment for that. So, this is my shot of coffee breath that can help to boost that energy before a meeting or a project or to start the day. There's a million different times that you could use it. Um, so the way that we do this is it's short exhale pulsations out the nose. And each time you breathe out, your stomach is pumping in. So your navel is snapping towards your spine. Almost imagine if you had a rubber band on your wrist and you were snapping it here. That's your stomach going out with an automatic inhale and pushing back with the
Hmm.
exhale. I wonder if I back up if you can get more of a stomach view here. But you can place
Yeah.
a hand on your stomach. Take a deep breath in fully through the nose. Deep breath out fully. Breathing in, feeling your hand expand. And then we begin short exhale pulsations. So, what you want to feel is your hand is moving, your shoulders are staying down, and you're just going to go. The yogic way to do it is 108 exhales. And then you take a deep breath in and hold. And you notice the energy building. And you notice how you feel when you're filled with air. And when you feel ready, you're allowed to let it go. And then check in with yourself. How do you feel after doing this? We
There's
typically
definitely some
3 rounds
similarity
before
with
the meet.
the similarity with like, Wim Hof's style, like, with mouth. But here I like the fact that it's through nose, because we know mouth breathing is not usually the best way. So having a similar impact with the nose actually is very interesting. What did you
Yeah,
say was the name of this breathing?
Kapalabhati.
Balabati. And it's the fire breath, right?
Yep.
Beautiful.
Breath of fire is a much easier name
Breath of
for it,
fire.
but
Yes, I like it. Breath of fire.
yeah,
And yeah, as you mentioned, like I can imagine in the morning it would be quite good to wake up as well.
totally. If you're groggy, if you're tired, honestly, if you're hungover, this
Hmm.
is a way to just like give yourself a boost to energy and go, okay, I can do this. You can do it multiple times throughout the day, right? You can do it first when you wake up. You can do it when you sit down at your desk. You can do it before you walk into a meeting, and really take a moment before to check in. How am I doing? And take a moment at the end of the hold to go, what differences do I feel?
Yeah.
The meaning you assign to the action makes a huge difference.
What do you think that is? Because I think you're right. And if you just like start your day immediately, it's a different impact. What's happening there? What do you think?
Your brain's locking it as something more important when you're assigning meaning to it, when you're staying focused, when you're staying present, right? I can
Mm,
do a million different things without focusing on them. I can
yeah.
drive to work and not actually have any idea of where I'm going. My brain didn't assign any meaning to that drive, right? If you say, "How was your
Mm,
drive?" I'm like, I don't know. I took the road. I made it.
yeah.
Uh, but if I have to do something with a level of presence, if I'm driving a new road and I'm paying attention and I know where I'm going and I notice, oh, there's trees over here, or there's traffic over here, or whatever, and you say, how was your drive? I can answer that question because I'm paying
Yeah.
attention, because I'm focused. And so now our job is, how do we bring that level of present moment awareness into everything that we do?
Yeah.
Especially when we're attempting to regulate our nervous system. If you just go through the motions and go, oh, my coach said I have to do breath work, so I don't feel better. Of course not. What did you do? You half-assed it.
Yeah.
It's not how it works.
I know you've looked into the science side as well here, going to various retreats, work with Joe Dispenza and so forth. Can you talk more about like what's happening physiologically or neurologically when you do, for example, in this case, the fire breath, breath of fire?
Yeah. Um, I think one of the really beneficial, like physiological things that's happening in this is it's known as a clearing breath. And so, if you think about the capacity of your lungs, if you're breathing really shallowly throughout the day, you're really only breathing into the top part of your lungs. And so, you can kind of imagine that the air at the bottom, it's probably been there for a minute. It's probably like a little old, a little stagnant. I don't know. Do you want to drink yesterday's cup of coffee that's been sitting on your counter for a while? Like, not really. You want like the fresh one from today. And so, what this is doing is it's pumping out all of that air moving through so that you're getting a fully clean set of lungs.
Yeah.
This basically is going to help. That's part of where the energy comes from, right? You don't have this like heavy stuck energy in the bottom of it, but it also is like clearing out your system, right? You've got oxygen running through your entire body. And so now this is moving it a little bit faster through your body, giving you a little bit more energy, clearing out any of the toxins or any of the buildup that's kind of accumulated over your day or week or month or year or however long it's been since your last practice. Um, and so it's really a beneficial thing for clearing. And when you clear your body, you clear your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. When it comes to like overall, just the science of breathing and the kind of the impact it has, what's been a surprising finding like you were like, well, didn't know this when you've looked into it more deeply?
That's a great question. Um,
Has there been one on your mind? If you want time to think about it, I can give you one on my side. So I recently
yeah.
interviewed a scientist who works on the interoception and like the mechanics of how breathwork connects to consciousness. And he was talking about the fact that we have these mechanoreceptors in our nose that only activate when we breathe deeply through the nose, and they have direct connection to brain. So that's like super fascinating how like it the way we breathe can basically shift the way we perceive the world. Um, which kind of makes sense, but then when you hear it for the first time, it's like, wow, why would that be? Like, why would evolution built that way? Which I still don't know, by the way, but it's interesting that that is the case.
I like that. I'm going to borrow that fact. I'm going to use that. That's a good one. I feel like I don't have any necessarily hard facts that are coming to mind in this moment, but I think what does come up is just how vastly different it is for each individual person.
Hmm.
Uh,
Talk more about that.
if I tell you to go to the gym, there's a million different options of things that you can do, right? And you can be going because you've gotten overweight and you need to come back to normal, or you can be going because you want to just get better, get healthier, get more fit, right? And I think that breath work comes from a similar place, right? As we were talking, breath is the medicine. It can bring you back to regulation, or it can give you this boost in your productivity and in your mental clarity and your overall health and well-being. And to see how different techniques resonate with different people and different techniques can drive different results in people. Some
Hmm.
people love this Kapalabhati and they're like, I now do it every single morning. Some people are like, that is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. Please never ask me to do that again.
Hmm.
That's totally fine. The best workout is the one that you do, right? And so if you don't like Pilates, don't go to Pilates, go to CrossFit. Find the exercise that works for you, find the exercise that works for your body. And I feel like working with someone who has an understanding of what the entire breadth of options is really the best way to do that, because then we can say, how was that for you? Did you feel that
Hmm.
boost of energy? Did it make you feel more anxious? Because if so, then we've got to go back to this regulation place. Um, and so I think it's just a fun experiment. Let's get really curious. How does this breath land for you in your body today? Because today you might not feel the same as you felt yesterday, and you may not feel the same tomorrow. And so the breath that's going to be, oh my gosh, today I'm so happy that I know this technique, that might not work tomorrow. I mean,
Yeah,
it
that's really
works,
fascinating.
but it might not be the ideal thing or the most ideal thing for what you need in that moment.
Hmm. And when it comes to personalization, which is kind of what you're referring to here, is like tailoring what to do based on, as you mentioned, just taste. What do you like? How do you feel, and so forth. Are there anything that comes to mind when it comes to that that is more programmatic that you just like because X you would do Y? So as an example, I was listening this week a breath coach from LA, and she was talking about like how uh, for for women there's like with the menstrual cycle, there's particular like cycle moments when you actually don't want to go into sympathetic as much. And then vice versa, in the beginning of the cycle, you actually do want, or it's more safe to activate that system. So like, is there anything like that that is like top of mind where if you know X about this person, you would do Y with them.
If you're in a place where you're really dysregulated and you've been really dysregulated for a long time, we're probably not going into an hour of super intense conscious connected breathing. Your baseline is negative. We got to get you back to a place where your body feels safe. That is more important than being like, I'm going to clear all my trauma from all of this stuff. And so it's figuring out like, are you at a place? What do you need? What is that? And so it's like, number one is getting from negative to neutral, and getting from neutral to a little bit better. And if you feel like you're chilling and a little bit better, and then you say, like, yeah, I kind of want to dive into something bigger, more cool. Let's go. But let's do it from a place that this is going to register as a really safe experience in your body. Let's do it in a setting that's going to be really safe to your body so that it's another way to process out garbage instead of just bring up the garbage and you now sit with it.
Yeah, I have to be careful. I think there's what's the right word? There's a word for it. Is it counter something factual? Not the kind of factual, but it's like a
Productive.
word where like when you shouldn't do it if you have X.
Yeah.
And I think and it doesn't matter, but there's a word for like if you have, for example, I don't know, like schizophrenia, you might not want to do this type of like
You most
long hours.
certainly do
So
not want to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although actually we interviewed recently someone who does specifically these type of deep stuff for people with bipolar disorders, but he has a very specific techniques he does it with, and based on his own experience. So we need to be careful there, I'm sure. Um,
Those are the places where go to the exact expert for your
yeah,
specific case,
yeah. And by the
right?
way, people, we're not medical experts, either of us, so need to be careful.
Nope. When
Uh,
in doubt, calm.
indeed,
Calm breath
indeed.
work.
But you did mention the conscious connected breathing, which I'm not sure everyone is familiar with. And I think you do the specific one called Breathwave. Could you talk more about what it is and what is it not?
Yes. So, breathwave is, as you just said, a conscious connected breathing technique. The way that I facilitate this is we have a longer session. So, I usually have people block off about 2 hours, and an
Hmm.
hour of that will be intensive breathing. We're going to breathe in through the stomach first, allow that breath to come up like a wave into the chest. And then, almost like you're just dropping the breath, you let it go. It falls out of your mouth. You're not pushing it out, you're not forcing it out. And then you want to eliminate the pause at the top and eliminate the pause at the bottom. So, this breath becomes a real wave of it. We do it with loud music, um, eye masks, big cushy mats on the floor, blankets in case people get cold. And we really want to create a space where people feel comfortable. We've got intentions being set beforehand with a full explanation of the types of things that could happen. You get physical changes in your body, right? Your temperature can change, different muscles can move, things can happen physically. You can get emotional things where different emotions, challenging ones or really blissful ones, can come up seemingly out of nowhere. And some people can have spiritual experiences, right? Where for certain people, this can be the closest to taking a psychedelic or to having a psychedelic experience without taking any substance whatsoever. And so I like to make sure they're aware of the full range of options that could come up in one of these sessions. We breathe pretty intensely for about an hour going through this. Um, I always think it's super key to have facilitators present so that whatever it is that comes up, there's someone there holding the space, there's someone there containing, there's someone there keeping you feeling grounded and okay in yourself. And we also then can offer some cool hands on adjustments, which I love receiving when I'm breathing. Um, a hands-on adjustment to me doesn't mean you're doing it wrong and I'm fixing you. It means I see an opportunity where maybe you're still holding something, and with just a slight shift, we can let it go. We can change the experience. We can get you a little bit deeper into this. Um, I think that it's a really, really great maintenance practice. Doing an hour-long session every day is not realistic for most people, nor do they have a container in which to do this. Um, But to add this in every few weeks, monthly, something like this, as a way to release any of the stored, stuck emotions, stressors in the body, and as a way to find clarity. And kind of
Mm,
as we were talking about with, excuse me, with some of the like more simple daily techniques that we can do, every single day is different. And so what
yeah.
works for you is different. Your experience is going to be different. And Breathwave is a really clear example of how every single experience is different. The first time you do it, you might be like, I don't know if I really felt it. I don't know where I'm at because you stayed in your brain and you didn't let yourself.
Hmm.
The second time, you might be sobbing and then come out of it and go, wow, I feel great. The third time, you might be cracking up laughing. You have no idea why, but it's the funniest thing that you've ever done. And so it's cool to see that like your body knows exactly what it is that you need to release. Your job is just to trust it. Your
Yeah.
body's entire goal is your survival. So it will never bring up something that you can't handle. And so if you trust that and know that everything will pass, if you feel this wave of sadness, this too shall pass. If you feel a wave of joy, this too shall pass. And just trust it and trust the breath, trust your own body, trust the experience and keep going through. It really, to watch people come out and just feel, I think lighter is probably one of the most consistent things that I see from people when they come out of these experiences. Is it just feels like they let something go.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. I think people can check out, I think it was maybe episode 5. We did it with Alice and Jared, where I talked about my own experience with Jared doing something similar, at least. Not maybe not the same, but similar. So people can check it out. But just maybe if I summarize to one word, like I felt this presence for like quite a while afterwards,
Yeah.
which is also beautiful as well. Like just to be in the moment when you're normally like in the past and the future. Well, in my case, a lot of the future. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
anyway.
It's similar to like a holotropic breath work, if people are familiar with that, just a little shorter
Yeah, with
and
music
a
as
little less
well.
intense, but like not always.
Indeed. What about like I noticed you're doing now, at least next year, maybe you've done it before as well, like this quite a long retreat. Was it 8 weeks? Can you talk more about that and what's happening there?
Yes. So the retreat itself is not 8 entire weeks.
Okay, got it.
We are doing an 8-week transformational coaching container at the beginning of
Mm,
the year with a retreat in the middle of it.
got it.
So it's myself and a partner of mine who is a hypno breathwork practitioner, which is a trip if you have ever experienced it. I'm happy to put you guys in contact because it's a really interesting modality.
Yeah,
And so what we started realizing is that right now we are recording this in November. So what we've realized is that most people, if you ask them, what were your goals in January? They don't know. They gave up, they forgot about them, they just like let them fall away. And I've seen so many, especially leaders, especially high achievers, set an absurd amount of goals. I'm going to do these 10 things in my business, and I'm going to do these 10 things in my personal life, and I'm going to do these for my learning goals, and I'm going to do this for my fitness. And you're like, your goal list is 52 things. How are you going to remember this? So, what we wanted to do is we wanted to create a container where we get really, really clear on who do you want to be December 31st, 2026. The end of the year, if this year goes exactly according to plan or even better, who are you? What have you done? What are your thoughts? What are your habits? What are your beliefs? What are your behaviors? How do you show up every single day? What does your business feel like? What do your relationships feel like? What do you look like? What do you do with your time? And so instead of just listing off like, oh my God, it would be amazing to read 100 books, I want to tap into that energy of future you. And then I want to get really clear about what is stopping you from being there right now. What are all of the blocks that you have in your life? What are the limiting beliefs? Okay, well, future me is now super, super wealthy, but I actually don't believe that that's possible. Okay, cool. If you don't believe that's possible, you're not going to get there in a year. So, how do we remove that belief that that's not possible? And how do we start to get you to think like that future you who has the life that you want to have? Over 8 weeks, we go deep. And we do coaching, we do different coaching exercises. We incorporate human design, which is a modality that, if you are not familiar, is basically astrology on steroids. Looks at yourself, your strengths, your energy, and how to best kind of build a life that feels really aligned to you. And then we do a bunch of hypno breathwork sessions as well. So we're going to rewrite that subconscious programming. We're going to let go of any of the stagnant energy. And then once we're kind of in this place where you've let go and you've let go and you've let go, you now have so much clarity for inspiration, intuition, creativity, all of these different ideas to come through of, I know how I'm going to get there. I know
Mm.
who that person is. I know, maybe I don't know every single step, but I know the next step to take. And so we're
Yeah.
going to hold that container, be accountable with everybody, really work for this deep transformation. And at the end of it, we'll give people an option. If you want to keep working with us virtually with, once a month check in and once a month hypno breath work, we're here. We're here to help you when things get challenging. We're here to help you remove the obstacles as they show up in your path. Um, and we're here to help you become the person you want to become.
Mm. Which is ultimately what most people want, right? They have
Totally.
something, a vision, goal, dream, whatever it is, and making it actionable and removing the limiting beliefs can be what's required. So it's beautiful.
And when you think about it, how many people actually do it?
Mm. Yeah.
So many people have an idea in their mind of like, this is where I want to go. Okay. What have you done about it?
Yeah.
Well, I can't. I'm busy. I have it. And okay. Then you're going to be
Indeed.
where you are. That's okay. But realize that that's a choice. Realize that with all of the resources you have the ability to make new choices and the ability to choose new thought patterns. You have the ability to make steps towards the future that you want.
Yeah. I think the limiting belief is something I need to go deeper into myself. I've done like goals for many, many years now, like 2 decades almost. One that I've found helpful, I did it, I think for the first time just a year or two ago, was adding the idea of like, you have a goal, then what is the sacrifice you're willing to make for that? Because then it becomes a bit more like a trade-off, because life is trade-off. Like, if you have 52 goals, you will notice that there's incompatibilities you need to prioritize. And so,
Hmm.
for example, in my case, I had a goal around, this company and so forth. And sacrifice there is that, I'm willing not to do some of my hobbies, because if you want to do something in the evenings and weekends, like you need to something off. But then my other goal was to spend time with my family and be a great father, a great husband. What's the sacrifice there is to probably not be maybe in the top percentile of companies, like the ultra, like if you want to be, Elon Musk or whatever, you actually need to sacrifice your family as well. And I'm not willing to do that. So I'm willing to sacrifice being in the highest percentile. And if that's, not when I find with someone, like an investor or something, then so be it. So it's good to be transparent about that for yourself and for others, like having the trade-off there.
Exactly. It's really just all about prioritizing, right? What's important to you. And if family is not important to you, that's a choice that you're allowed to make, right? But we have to also realize like where are the energy sucks? Where are the things where our energy is leaking that we're not realizing? And you go, oh
Mm,
no, I don't have time to prioritize my business. And then you also, I don't know, maybe you're on your phone, maybe you're watching TV, maybe you are with sports, maybe you, whatever it is, we all have them. We all have these kind of energy drains, and it's figuring out what would it look like if I actually just took back some of that time for myself and put it towards something that's important to me.
And how do you help people do that? Do you like go through the calendar and check what's sucking your energy? Like, what's the practical step there for people?
We've got to get really honest, really clear with what those energy sucks are. For some people, it's like unnecessary meetings. Um, and what's interesting is that if you are the executive, you usually have control over the fact that you don't want to attend that meeting. And so going, okay, what happens if you don't go to this one meeting a week you cancel? What are you going to do in that hour? What's going to bring you closer to your goals? What's going to bring you closer to what you want, what you need? What's going to make you feel more centered? Um, Sometimes it's not that easy, right? Sometimes we can't just cancel a meeting. And so then it's saying, when you get home, how do you feel? Do you
Mm,
get home and your house feels like chaos and there's kids running around and things like that? In which case, is there a way to create some more order in your home life? Or when you get home, do you just like collapse on the couch and turn on the TV and turn your brain off? In which case, what can we do so that you're not so exhausted at the end of your day that collapse is your only option?
Hmm.
And so it's really
Interesting.
looking piece by piece, person by person, what's your kryptonite? Because to some people, it is social media, right? They're scrolling, they're scrolling, they're scrolling, they're scrolling. That's a pretty easy thing to see. But if that's not something you do, there's somewhere else that your energy is most likely leaking. So how do we get
Yeah.
really, really honest with ourselves about what that is?
Hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. Maybe going back to the to someone that you worked with, what's been like a memorable or something you're pretty proud of as a case study of what's possible here when you do breath work, but also maybe other more broader work in your life?
I had a client who went on an international vacation with his family, wife and 3 kids. And at the end of the trip, it was 2 weeks, on the flight home, his kids clapped because he never yelled at them. That's not why he came to me. But that to me is worth all the gold in the world, right? His business is thriving. He's in a place where he's doing so well because of the techniques that we're using that are bringing him into meetings where he is calm and cool and collected. And in negotiations where other people at the table are getting frazzled and frustrated, he's holding steady and he's walking away winning because of it. So that's what he came for. We've done that. But that's not the only thing he got. The fact that your wife and your kids are noticing that your temperament is more relaxed, more enjoyable to be around, you're having more fun, that is such a cool thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something you kind of, you don't always even notice, right? If you're in that moment, you're like, and then you might be something you then go like look back maybe 10, 15 years later, talk to children, and then was that like that? Yes, dad.
Yeah. And I think it's hard, right? If you're in a high stress, high pressure job, that stress carries over into your life, right? And no matter how much you love your kids, you're here for your kids, you want to do the best you possibly can, they can
Hmm.
sense your energy. If you're stressed, they know it. If you're angry, they know it. And so knowing that this work is not only helping with your stress levels and how you show up in the office, but this is also helping how you show up with every other relationship in your life.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I nerd out over this.
No, it's very true. It's very true. And like, how many of us are still thinking about the stuff when we come home and you haven't done like that little break of like a quick, deregulation exercise of something you can, be present when you want to be present. And of course, if you want to do work, that's fine. Then just be clear about it. But I think
Totally.
most of us don't choose that. It's just a habit. It's happening in the background.
And that's an energy leak.
Mm,
Accidentally bringing your work home when you don't want to is an energy leak. Making the conscious choice, I still have work to do. I'd like to sit in my office and do this for another hour, 2 hours, whatever. That's a conscious choice by all means. But if you're going, I'm done working, I'm leaving my work at the office, and you come home and you're like, that's an energy leak. So how do we
mm,
address that?
yeah, definitely. Maybe switching gears a little bit, like as you know, this the podcast is called Art and Science of Breathing, and I think we've covered some of the scientific side of things. Where to you does the art come into place here? What's the art piece as a breath coach for other people?
I love that question. To me, the art is intuition. So, what that looks like as a facilitator is being able to check in with somebody and how they're doing and how they're feeling. Every once in a while, I get people who are going, no, I'm super regulated. And so I can do the like get to hear breath work. And I'm like, I hear the words that you're saying. I feel the energy that you're emitting. Those aren't aligned. So we're going to get you to zero first and then move on. That's obviously a super obvious example of it. But I think that going into these like longer breathwave sessions, these longer breathwave journeys, and just getting this kind of intuitive pull of who's someone who needs presence with them,
Yeah.
someone who wants another person there, who's someone who needs a physical adjustment in this moment, who's someone who wants to be left alone. And obviously, we have conversations about consent before all of this. At any point in time during any breathwork session, people can say the word stop with no explanation, no reason. I'll back off. We will not do any hands-on adjustments for the rest of the session. That can just be because you don't feel like it. There doesn't have to be a reason. There doesn't have to be anything wrong, right? You get to choose the journey that you want. But when somebody is wanting that support and wanting adjustments and whatever, it really is an intuitive game. There's not a I'm going to do A, B, and C with every single person in order. It's going,
Hmm.
what is it that Patrick specifically needs today? What is it that's going to get Patrick just a little bit more freedom or presence or release or whatever it is? And how can I tap into that and tune into that? And it's so funny because when I try to think about it, I'm like, what did I do? No idea. But if I just let my like rational mind leave the building, I find that I energetically am drawn to the people in different times. And afterwards in sessions, people will be like, how did you know that that was the exact moment that I had a picture of my grandma in my head and she held my hand, and in that same second you held my hand. And so I felt like my grandmother was here with me. And you're like, and again, it's not a spiritual experience for everyone, right? So that type of experience, not going to happen for everyone, not going to, it's a certain type of person or a certain type of mood or a certain type of day or whatever it is. And so if that feels like something where you're like, it feels a little crazy to hold hands with my grandma, that might not happen to you then. That's not going to be
Hmm.
your experience. That's not what you're open to calling in, wanting, expecting. And so again, it's a cool thing that every person, every day, every breath is completely different.
Hmm. Yeah, I can imagine like with experience, you start building up that intuition of like, what's the right thing to say or do next? Not because you have a script in mind of like, as you mentioned, X, because of X, now Y, but because like, I just feel like this is the right thing to do. I'm curious, like, if you have any advice, because like a lot of, I think particularly in corporate, there's this like, we're very fascinated with the hemisphere of the brain that is like logical, and you break down things into the constituents party. Like people talk a lot about first principles thinking, particularly in Silicon Valley, which I think there's a lot of good things about it. It's that scientific method is based on that kind of principle, and yet even with science, like it's still based on intuition. Like what are the hypotheses that you want to test? It's come from somewhere more deep. So like if you were to almost like I don't know, let's say design a course for someone to improve their intuition in their work, what comes to mind? What are the first steps people can take to improve their intuition?
It's a great question. Um, it's really rooted in trusting yourself.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people go, well, yeah, I trust myself. I'm really smart. I make great decisions. That is wonderful. And that's not it. This is less trusting your mind and more trusting your body. And so the first step to that is understanding, how is my body? For a lot of leaders, for a lot of people, not everyone, obviously, in these like high pressure, high stress environments, they don't have time to listen to their body. I don't have time to have emotions. I don't have time to have feelings. I don't have time for all of that stuff. So I'm just going to do my work and get it done and move the needle. And that creates a level of disconnect between your body and yourself. And that's when sickness happens and injuries happen and problems start forming because your body's like, hey, I've been trying to tell you something. You're not listening. So I was whispering, but now I'm going to yell. And I'm going to yell in the form of like a really severe headache or whatever it is. And so one of the practices that I think is absolutely paramount for people to do is to just learn how to listen to their body. So learn how to quiet down your mind, be where you are, and say, what do I actually feel in this moment in my body? And for most people, the first answer is nothing. I feel fine. Great. Keep sitting. And can you notice anything? Maybe you notice a certain part of your body feels warm or cold. Maybe you notice energy in your body. Maybe you notice how your breath is. Maybe you notice a tightness in your chest. Maybe you notice a feeling of relaxed ease. What do you notice? And then over the course of your day, you go into a meeting, it's really high pressure. Pause. And what do you notice? Oh, I do notice that my shoulders creeped up and I'm inching here. Okay, my body's trying to tell me that I'm uncomfortable, right? I don't look comfortable doing this. So what does it take to say, "Hey body, I hear you. I understand that you're uncomfortable. It makes sense that
Hmm.
you're uncomfortable." And together we can do a breathwork technique to start to feel a little bit more comfortable. Not
Yeah.
saying, "Screw this, I don't have time to be uncomfortable," but instead saying, "I hear you. I really understand. I get that. And now let's work together to come back to a place of ease and come back to a place of comfort." That is a practice that takes, well, for some people it's super easy. And for some people it
Yeah.
takes a long time to understand, okay, you're fighting with your partner. What is your body doing? How does your body feel? And then you start to look at it in good moments as well, right? You're playing with your kids, you're having the best time. How does your body feel? Oh my God, my heart feels like it's growing and like my smile is just plastered on my face. And, the sensations can be different for everybody. But if you want a relationship with intuition, you have to have a relationship with your physical body. You have to know what's going on. You have to know, oh, this just happened and my body felt unsafe. Even if I logically understand that this is not an unsafe situation, I can hear my body. I can respect that it's feeling that way. And I can work with it to say, okay, what would it take to get us back to a place where we do feel safe?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Maybe a couple of things I'll add to what you said to compliment for listeners. Like one is that I was recently heard the one of the founders of this app called I think it's called How Do We Feel? I don't know if you ever come across that. It's like basically developed by scientists around emotional intelligence, and they made this like it's a free app. It's based on donations, so people can check it out, and it helps you with like getting vocabulary for the emotions because there's like myriad of different things that are you can just say anxiety, but actually you mean something a little bit different actually, but importantly different on what it actually means. So like that been I think I've just been trying it for like a few days now, but it seems like it's can be helpful for a lot of people is a just having the vocabulary, and then it also asks you where do you feel that right now in the body. It's just because it's as you referred to, it's kind of a practice, right? It's a muscle. You need to train it. Like I know a lot of people, including myself to some extent. And 10 years ago, I wasn't really connected to my body, and I know a lot of guys are this way. Like if you ask like how do you feel, like fine,
Fine.
tired.
Tired.
That's the extent to my emotional capacity. So I think just practicing it by like and this nuance, like you mentioned, like it started with just like cold, warm, then it's like, oh, actually, there's a little bit of tingling here, or this or that, and then which part is it? Like, oh, it's in the backside or something. So that may be point one, and then point two is like I think going almost writing what you said is that I've been working with this thing called Art of Accomplishment. It's Joe Hudson's thing, and basically they teach you to kind of have 10% of your attention in the body, which is kind of like even in a meeting, like having that little bit of there, like in the body is really helpful because then you notice how you react. And then instead of reacting like, oh, interesting, I found this happening. And then, by the way, being transparent about it can be also quite interesting when you kind of say that, hey, when you said that, I felt this, I'm not sure why. That can also open up the interesting conversation and then like a team dynamic, for example. I'm not sure if you have any reflections on either of those two things.
Yeah, I love the sound of this app. So I'm going to check this out because you're right. We don't necessarily have the vocabulary for it, right? You're taught that your feelings are like, I feel fine. I feel tired. I feel good. That's kind of, or mad.
Yeah.
um, and so I love this idea of just broadening the understanding. I think it's really important where it is in your body to help you to understand what it is that you need to do to work with that feeling. Um, and this idea of keeping 10% in your body, it's the witnessing awareness, right? It's understanding that you are not the mind, but you are the consciousness that witnesses the mind. And what's really interesting with these high performance leaders that I'm working with is that some of them just want concrete scientific tools, in which case, great. That is what we do. And some of them start to be like, wait a minute. What is that witnessing awareness thing? What is that presence that's paying attention to how I'm feeling that doesn't feel like my brain talking, but it feels like it's here? And for me, that's a fun place when we get to that and we start to talk about a little bit more um, kind of the depth of yoga
Yeah.
philosophy is where I go with it.
Interesting. How often does that? Is it every time, or is it like, just curious?
Is it every time? Mostly, but I also I'm unsure if that is because that's just the path, right? When you get to a point where you're clear with your body and your mind
Hmm.
is more clear, that now you have space for more presence, or if it's because that's the type of client that I personally attract, right? Is
Sure.
that
There might be
person?
some opposite bias, like the ones that are with you till the end. They're
Mhm.
open-minded and so forth.
Yep. It
Makes
could be
sense.
that. It's funny. I feel like my something I never expected, most of my clients are men. Like almost all of my clients are men and they're in 40s, 50s, 60s. Had you told me this 3 years ago, I would have been like, there's no way. There's no way. And yet somehow this just seems to be the group of people that need my help in this moment. Um, and I think it really bodes well, to be honest, because I think this can be true men or women or non-binary or whatever, but if you're at this point where arguably you have all of the things that you wanted, right? You've got a family, you've got kids, you've got the wife, you've got a great job, you're successful, all of these external markers of success. But you notice that your health isn't great, but you feel too young to have like health problems.
Hmm.
And then you hit around 50 and you go, uh-oh, if I don't do something, it's going downhill from here. And
Yeah.
my clients tend to be the ones who wake up and go, I got to do something. I need to make some sort of change. I have to adjust something because having 50 years still ahead of me is a long time and I can do some really cool stuff if I am in good physical, mental, emotional health to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. And also, like as you mentioned, the last piece, emotional health, it's become more and more, let's say, people are more aware of it,
Yeah,
and also interested in it. And I think it's less of a taboo for guys also to like be aware of it, and also for women. So I think it's, yeah, which is, I think, a good thing. And like we want people that are connected with their emotions and so forth. Chelsea, so we're starting to draw the close. Let's imagine that we have someone listening who's like one of those people that is, they feel a bit stressed right now. They maybe have a high stress job, but they're like, they're kind of interested. They're curious. They don't know where to start. Like YouTube is full of stuff. There's like all these podcasts and everything. Where do you recommend people to kind of take the first plunge? Is it like directly you should talk to like a human being, or is there a way to do like a small step? Like, what do you recommend to someone like that?
I would start with a human because if you don't know where to start, if you can connect one on one with somebody, they can help guide you to the path that's right for you. There are a zillion breathwork options on YouTube, which is amazing. I'm so
Mm,
happy that we have that library of content available to us. But as we said with the medicine, if you just play breathwork on YouTube, you're reaching into your medicine cabinet blind, going, gosh, I really hope this is the one. And it might not be. So talk to a human, speak to someone. These are the things that are going on in my life. This is how I'm feeling, or I don't even know how I'm feeling.
mm,
And this is what I would like. And let someone give you a prescription. Here are the things that are going to help you. Here's how often you should be practicing daily. Here's how long you need to be practicing. It's not that long. You can practice for a long time, but like 10 minutes a day can make massive shifts in somebody's life.
yeah,
But it matters that you're doing the thing that's aligned with you and what you want. And also, it really helps if I say, okay, here's your prescription, go do Kapalabhati breath every day, and you're like, I really don't like it, you're probably not going to do it. So you should be able to call me back and say, I don't want to do that one. Give me another one.
mm. Yeah.
I can say, okay, cool. What don't you like? What doesn't work? Why does that feel uncomfortable? There's a small chance I'm going to say, yeah, you got to do it anyways. You're going to overcome that. And there's a pretty big chance I'll say, okay, here's another option.
Yeah. And maybe connects to what you said about the like tailoring. You know, you could in theory like write in like I want breath work for sleep or something. But the problem even there, I noticed like it's has to be generic. It has to be like same for everyone, obviously. So I think what the miss is that, you know, for example, I'm sure you're aware of the 4-7-8, which is I think usually advertised for sleep. But
Yes.
for a lot of people, the 7-second hold is very long and it actually makes them more anxious and it's very difficult. So I think like having like whether it's human being or hopefully with Albios we can do some of that, not fully, but like a little bit of tailoring based on your lung capacity, for example, with the wearable, and make sure like you get the at the right you know the timings for each exercise, which can actually then be relieving that get into a sleep mood, for example, in this case. Anyway, that's another thing I've noticed with some of the generic stuff.
Totally. And same for, you're doing any sort of box breathing, right? For somebody, a 3 second in, 3 second hold, 3 second out, 3 second hold is the number. For some people, that's 10. That's a huge variance. And if you're doing the wrong one, you're probably not getting the results that your body needs.
Yeah, and particularly if you have anything to do with mental health. I've just spoke to a breath coach who works with people that have like, not serious, but sudden like anxiety or even like, panic attacks and so forth. And she was saying like she worked with someone that had like the bolt score, which is like how long can you like hold your breath after you've exhaled? And it was like 1 second. And so if you have that situation, you definitely can't do most of the box breathing stuff online. So like having a bit of calibration in this case with a human could be crucial for that person.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Chelsea, if people want to connect with your work and maybe connect with you, what's the best place to do that?
Yes. So I am highly active on Instagram. You can find me at practice.with.chelsea. You'll be able to see retreats that I'm hosting, and you can reach out there for one-on-one. I do virtual coaching with people. So anywhere in the world that you happen to be, we can set up Zooms and chat. And I have a website that is chelseakane.podia, podia.com. You can see kind of a wide range of offerings that I've got on there and an email address in case you want to reach out. So those are
Mm,
the best places to find me.
amazing. And we'll make sure to link everything in the description as well below. But hey, Chelsea, thank you so much for hopping. That was a lovely conversation. And I think we hopefully all learned a couple of new things. And for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in and wish you to see you all soon. Again, ciao.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.